Roll call. Richard Heisey.
Here.
Bennett Aiken.
Here.
Peter Argentine. Sweden. Rob Mackey here. Chuck here. Collier Grodnick. And Sonia is. No, that's Andrew. Absent. Commissioner Flynn.
Present.
Judy Supel. Philolio. Here. And we have a special guest, Finance Director Andrew McCreary. Let's go to citizens' comments. Sandy was there.
Sandy is out.
Okay.
That's citizen comment.
I kind of have one. I sent an email on it. It's, but I had a Mount Lebanon based landscape architect approach me Friday or Saturday about bamboo use, and she's got her second client where the neighbor has planted bamboo on the property line and is now crossing into her client's property. The first one had destroyed a patio. This one, the neighbor refuses to remove the patch. And she's told her client the only choice she has is to basically put a 3-foot wall in the ground along the property line. And her client's furious. So she approached me if I knew any kind of rules, anything in Mount
I
Lebanon.
checked with the building inspection's office after you sent that email. They don't have anything
So
in the municipal code.
she just asked if I would make a comment and said she'd be happy to come to a meeting and discuss the issue, but she said with Golden Hardy bamboos that are coming up. And just the physical, that they can destroy foundations, everything else, she just.
There are other products that can be used. You can use metal. You don't have to build a wall underground.
Some kind of, basically.
It has to be a barrier, and there are also barriers that are fabric that have an encapsulation of a pre-emergent herbicide on them
Okay. Oh, that's
in capsules. So you can use that as well, but you just cut a slot in the ground
Yeah,
because it's rhizomatous, so it will spread through rhizomes. So it's a grass is what it is. I will find out and let you know what the proper, I don't think that the Parks Advisory Board is the proper avenue for that. I think that it's more code enforcement, exactly. So I will try to get that information for you. I didn't have an opportunity. The manager was really busy this week, as well as the rest of us.
Is there a meeting that she should go to?
I'll let you know on that. I don't know. I don't know what that is, but I tried to find out if there's anything that's enforceable through building codes or property management with code enforcement. And there's nothing on the books. I talked to the chief inspector that day when you sent that email. So, but I'll try and follow up. And
She was looking for some solution where
Understood.
her client doesn't have to dig a 100-foot long trench and put some kind of barrier in.
yeah, there might not at this point, since it's already there. I don't know if that's an option or not, but I'll let you know.
I would just note that there have been municipalities in Pennsylvania that have banned the planting of bamboo. So the precedent is out there. Just takes a board to go and do the research and propose it and convince everybody to do it.
Maybe the right thing is for her to go to a commission meeting and talk to it. Okay, great, thank you.
Richard, Mr. McCreary.
Yes, thank you for having me this evening. Phil had asked me to come tonight just to briefly outline kind of the viewpoint of the finance director as I kind of shuttle the budget along throughout the year. It's kind of my main purpose through the budget process is to shuttle along with the departments to the manager to the commission, right? So that's kind of the lineage as it goes. So we've already started our budget process. Our budget process has already been released for departments to be giving us capital improvement stuff. So all of their capital improvements are delivered to us by mid-June. All their requests, those are then reviewed for the following month for any follow-up, anything the manager would like to know, anything like that. And then those are delivered to the commission in August. as part of the capital improvement plan. In early July, we start releasing the operating budget to the departments for them to be doing. And so they start formulating their operating budget. As part of that, they should have already had formulating ideas. They do not need to necessarily have numbers put to them yet. They get a couple months to do that. But in June and then early July, they should start formulating at least the shell of what they want to request. And this will all come back to the Parks Board, I promise. So that shell of what those numbers are, or what those ideas are, will then be, just kind of documented in Word form. There's no necessarily hard numbers that need to go to it immediately, but at least gives us as the finance department as to a reminder that we need to get this, you need to go to this board, you need to talk to this person, get to the engineer, whatever it may be, to do those things. So then from there in July and then early August, the numbers are due. And that's really when the hard numbers of personnel are delivered. That's when contractual services that we know we're going to have. Those are all and commodities. Those are all things that are delivered. So part of the operating budget is really solidified to deliver to the manager. When I say solidified, just meaning there's going to be a deliverable to the manager in September. So that's what that happens there. The rest of August then flushes out some of those other ideas that maybe we needed to take a month or two to get numbers. So an idea pops up from a board, something really rises to the surface. And in that, then what was word form then becomes something that we want to put a hard number to in order to get to the final budget for recommendation or at least consideration. So once those are all delivered, about the 10th of September, we deliver the budget to the manager and give him all of our service levels that have been delivered from the departments. Those service levels also include everything from August. So everything from August for the capital improvement plan, that's delivered along with all the operating budget stuff. So it's all delivered at once for his consideration. So we go through a 2-day process of discussing all those things and how they come together. Obviously you have revenue impacts as well that need to go in there. I know we're mostly talking about the expense side, but we do have the revenue component that we then start talking about there. I've been developing those generally non-department specific revenues, which is the bulk of our revenues, taxes, other intergovernmental revenues, those types of things. We discuss all those in that September timeframe as well, making sure my assumptions we're all in line with where the assumptions, I give them the data as to where we're at. And then we deliver by the end of October, or I'm sorry, the end of September, we have some final budget ready for recommendation to the commission. We give ourselves about 3 weeks to prepare to give it deliverable to the commission for a November 1st date. And then it's delivered to the commission. We have 3 to 4 budget sessions that are open to the public, plus 2 public hearings at commission meetings as well. So there's opportunities for 4 public sessions to see how it's discussed and what we're discussing, and 2 for public comment and public discussion. And then ultimately, coming out of that process, the deliverable is the final budget in December. And that's at the first meeting in December.
So is it fiscal year the same as the calendar year?
Yes.
For some reason I said the
Yes.
city was a different fiscal year.
Yeah. We're calendar year here. Okay. So how that relates to a board.
The 10th of September, delivering operating budget and capital improvement together.
Yes,
Is it a commingled or is it 2 separate?
it's commingled.
Okay.
Commingled, correct. Generally, the top 125 are pretty, you're gonna have a chief of police, you're gonna have a finance director, you're gonna have things that are required by the charter. Those are funded. So those are within the first 125 levels that we generally fund. Debt service, the garbage contract, so on and so forth. There's some of those levels that aren't really decisionable, for a lack of a better term. But yes, they are all commingled. So he starts with probably of a $35 million general fund budget, 25 million is already kind of allocated. Yes, we call it a certain, that's why we're quasi zero-based budgeting, because there are certain things in zero-based, no matter who does it, is that you're gonna have fixed stuff. If you have debt service, you're paying it. That's why it's number one, right? It's a $3 million tag, right? Well, there's 3 million of your 35 million is gone in the very first level. So on and so forth. But yes, it is all commingled, all service levels are delivered together. Yep, all 200 and some odd. So
I'm sorry, Andrew, did you say the top 25 lines or top?
125.
Could you elaborate a bit on how how the CIP is defined? One, I know it's commingled, but then, you know, we've got, you know, this thing from last year that has like the line items and you know, is there a trigger if it's over 25 grand, then it's capital versus stock or?
It's not pure dollar volume based. So there's certain criteria that hit it, and sometimes it's a judgment call. Because there are certain things that you could define. So I'll give you an example. The golf course is a good example. So some of their equipment could be determined to be capital in nature, that would qualify for the capital, but they are on a routine schedule in which they're replacing capital on a yearly basis at a lower amount. So we determined, hey, it's easier just to put it in the operating budget because it's over time. Instead of clogging up the capital budget with a $25,000 piece of equipment this year, 30 next year, and then 45. Instead of clogging it all up, we're going to do it in the operating budget. It's just easier to leave it there. So some of it is a judgment call. So I won't say it's not. But generally it's 25,000 or more, 2 or more years of asset useful life. And there's a couple other criteria that go into it. But ultimately it's a judgment call. Either way, it becomes a service level if it rises to the level of a current year recommended budget. So whether it's sitting so a fence replacement's a good example. So we did the Dixon Field fence replacement, right? Whether we, based on inflation and those types of things, whether it came in at 35 or 20, you know, either way, wherever it's set, whether it be in the operating or capital, it wouldn't have mattered. It's still a operating or a service level to be decided upon for it.
And for capital expenditures, again, I'm looking at 22 through 27 CIP as sort of a go by. How do you plan for multi-year expenditures or a capital project that may expend over a number of years? And balance, you know, the sort of the draw schedule for construction or something versus deciding where it goes in terms of the overall budget. Marco Anley, say you have $1 million project and I'm making that easy and it's going to take 3 years or 4 years, maybe even.
Okay.
So it could be 250,000, you know, each of the 4 years, or it could be, you know, 125 and 500 and 125 or what have you. Which could impact what the sort of the budget is for each of those 4 years. And what's doable in terms of each of those 4 years. I'm just wondering how those longer term, more expensive capital projects are factored in terms of scheduling and deciding we can't afford it all at once, we can afford it over X number of years, or we need to go out for bonds or whatever.
I'll answer that in 2 different ways. So the first is that when we know a bond issue is coming, we like to wrap them in there. You know, when there's large capital projects coming that we know if we can push off for a year or 2 because we know a bigger issue is coming and it's going to be part of it. But sometimes we can't wait, right? We can't wait. So I get that. But we've done it with a number of projects around here. So I'll give you an example. Is this building facade, right? So this building facade we did in a 4-year plan. We did each side every year, right? We did every side. And they were varying costs. One was 90,000, one was 150,000, depending on which side it was. But ultimately that comes down to the commission. We give them saying, this is what it's going to cost per year. It's their decision whether and we'll give them the pros and cons of doing it all at once. Whereas like for this building facade, it didn't make sense to do it all at once. One, you couldn't get a contractor mobilized for 2 sides of the building that you would have jackhammering, so on and so forth. So you give them those pros and cons, just using that as an example. But ultimately, we give the commission the opportunity to decide whether they want to fund it as in one fell swoop, if that's able to be done, or whether they're gonna have to see this project over multiple years. A current one we have going is the Public Works, our Public Safety Buildings facade. They funded 200,000 this year for work to be done, knowing that there's gonna be six-figure improvements that need to be done over the next couple of years of that building to improve and improve water penetration. You know, some sealed up windows and those types of things of that building.
Thank you. When I hear the word capital, I think of depreciation and how I'm gonna account for it.
Yes,
Is there a relationship, or does that word mean counting, it's a capitalized asset, and I'm gonna depreciate it, or is it not related? How should I?
somewhat related, yes. Yes, there are things that don't show up on the capital improvement plan that I amortize or depreciate. Correct.
Would get
That's
depreciated.
correct. That gets depreciated. That's correct. That's correct. Yes. Yeah.
So the answer is
It depends. It does, because ultimately the fluctuation of it, we're trying to get to the bigger ticket items. Our operating budget can hold, and maybe 25, just like in the first criteria is $25,000 or more. That's an artificial number that was created many years ago, and maybe we should change it. I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking right now as we're talking about. Maybe we should change that. Maybe it should be 100,000 or more. Should be your threshold. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Is that maybe your threshold is a little too low at this point to be called a capital item? When it comes to because the capital improvement process typically is trying to handle things Tom's mentioning, things that are multiple years in nature that we're trying to foresee. You know, things that are coming, like this south garage, right? We need to start getting on, putting that on the capital improvement plan for the next 5 years of some big dollars going into that garage, whatever that may be. And I know some of that has to do with capital, the comprehensive plan. And we just received a south garage structural study. So those things looking longer term is really where the capital improvement plan, we really want to focus. And it's not on individual pieces of equipment. We've used it like that. We do it in like this year was the fire department, for instance, for their AEDs, for replacing all the AEDs throughout the community. It rises to that level because it's the dollar amount, but necessarily should that be through the capital plan? I don't know. I don't know if that's the best place for it, but that's where it lands.
So the capital, I don't know, I keep walking here, but the municipal budget is developed every year, the way you outlined, Andrew, and it makes perfect sense. And I'm paying semi attention to it for 20 years now, but how does the municipality also, sounds like you sort of do, I don't know, formal processes, have like a long-term capital budget to say, here are, our big ticket projects. And here's our projected, schedule cost per year, and therefore the construction fund will fall below X or something, and we project needing to sell bonds in 2026 or what have you. Is there sort of a discrete, here's our capital plan, or is it more?
No, there's not something like that that
It's not
exists.
saying there necessarily ought to be.
Yeah. I think that rises to the level when the comp plan gets done this year. I imagine they did that. I was not here for the last comp plan when they were developing that, and I got hired there right after I got, but that's a good idea to do. But based on where our debt service is currently, I've been telling the commission that 2025 and 2026 are going to be the years where we can issue debt in 24. Really, we have capacity to do some large projects using general tax dollars to do some large projects. So that's where the comp plan, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and they're also doing a main park site plan. With all of those being done, we should be able to start putting some real investments back into those parks if we want to use the bond avenue, not, those other avenues with grants and other general funds. But that may be a component of those larger debt issuances coming. They could also opt to not, but they will have that availability to do that. And maintain where they're currently spending on debt service.
What year was that?
2025. Yeah. But the last thing I just wanted to also, so, I know tonight you have on your prioritization, I was previewing the agenda, so that has both, look like some capital and some operating within it. So what I want to kind of preface is that really what needs to be discussed at a June meeting at a Parks Board or any board in their June or prior is really the capital big ticket items. Yes, because in August, these can still maintain is more flushing out those operating budget numbers. So that those can change, those can do, those it can be different than they are in June if there's things that arise over the summer, especially for a board like the Parks Board. Even something may arise. I don't know what that may be. You know, I'm not a tree guy or in the parks and such, but really we need final operating priorities, things that are less than $20,000, $30,000, $25,000 or less priorities in the parks will need by the first meeting in August, in your first meeting in August. Those can then be incorporated into the budget for decision making.
So. But, I mean, the way I framed it was, these are the 7 items we talked about, and what's the most important? In a rank of 7.
Sure.
Can that be then extrapolated based on how much they cost after the fact as to which go?
The absolute, this is the finance director's perspective is I just need the capital items by that point. So if you needed another couple months to flush them out, you have that opportunity for the operating side, but the capital needs to be to us at that point. It can be molded together, that's fine. It is presented to the commission. This list that you have here of these 7 items will be delivered to the commission as part of the recommended budget. They get your list. I know Commissioner Flynn may forward it on as well, also talking about it at updating boards and advisory boards at the commission meetings as well. So there's other opportunities for this list to be presented, but at the very least, I asked Phil for that list in early October when we're delivering the packet that then goes to the commission for the full consideration of the parks budget.
Just to clarify, and forgive me if I confuse myself, this list of 7 items on the agenda. You, Andrew, need at least a rough capital cost estimate for each of these by August.
If they're capital nature, so knowing some of these projects, the Meadowcroft Park Phase 3, we need a number by June 16th. Which we should be able to, we have that, yeah. The parking lot with green provisions at Bird Beating parking lot. The bleacher replacements, we've had an operating just because we can piece it out. So if we could replace Middle, next year replace Seymour, next year replace Dixon. We made the conscious decision, so that could wait till August. The community gardening improvements, those are gonna be capital in nature because you're putting in big fencing, earth moving, those types of things. If it gets to that level, I don't know that you're talking about the one at the golf course. Sorry, that's what it's referring to. So those would be the 3 that I would mention would be needing to have some numbers by June, mid-June.
I think, given that the numbers, that the actual amounts on a few of them are not yet known, I think it's important that we just let municipal staff
Sure.
and commission know what we think is most important.
Sure. No, and that's fair, and that's why I think Phil had me come tonight was, we know there's a board transition coming to where there's gonna be the Parks and Rec Board next year, so consolidating the framework to blend some of these principles that you're doing now into that next board to make sure that a parks priority and how that then could be, a bleacher replacement has some effect on the sports boards, right? So how you meld those lists together and the foundation of those, I don't know how the sports board does their decision making because they're a different board, so.
First days were a lot more organized, scripted. We did the same thing for over a decade.
Yeah.
Kind of the same procedures,
Right.
same meetings, we have minutes. So I think that's one of the concerns is that, we pretty much have structure and our understanding the sports advisory board doesn't have as much structure or routine.
I mean, at this point, they have a spreadsheet with rankings,
If they do that.
1 through 8, so they got to a place where they're saying this is what we think is most important.
Right.
And they've got dollars associated to it, so. Okay. I think we, board members, Bennett, do you agree we can just rank them to identify what is most important, or the ranking of importance? Is that without differentiating capital versus operating at this point?
I think at this point that makes sense because we don't. We don't know the numbers for some of these, and municipalities working on a couple of them, as Andrew mentioned. So yeah, and then it'll be up to municipality or the Parks Advisory Board, or both are a little fuzzy as to moving forward, fleshing out. If we ask for something and it's $50 million, obviously you'll tell us. But we don't.
Well, and I will also say that yes, August seems, as much as I don't advocate for this, but it doesn't mean that it's set in stone August 15th. Right, so we can still take in more information and those amendments can be done. So if there's tweaks to the bleacher replacement or tweaks to the bird parking lot, whatever that may be, we can still take tweaks as we go, but the general foundation of what those priority service levels need to be, for deciding on that. Because it's hard to make that quick decision with something that's going to be 30 grand when you haven't heard about it yet. So forth. Those things that pop up that are 30 grand, those are.
Yeah, I see the
Keep me
ranking,
up at night.
the ranking tonight is in part saying this is what we need to invest in to get some numbers around. Yeah. Any other questions for Andrew? We don't.
Yeah, actually, I do. Yeah, Andrew, as I think about this process, for me, it really boils down to, a board is not really in a position to put a price tag on anything, right? I mean, unless there's a unique scenario where a board member has a professional expertise in whatever that is and can price something out. Yeah, and I'm not speaking just for this board, I'm speaking for any board. But they do have a sense of priority. For me, it really seems like the more logical approach is that a board should be, saying these are the things that we think are important, and they need to be put on a list for a pricing exercise that needs to occur prior to capital and operating budget development. And then there needs to be some transparency in that process so that the board says, oh, yeah, they got the prices on these and we can see them. Not that they're going to opine on the price, but they understand that the process is flowing. They gave input as to, here's our list and here is a rolling price tag. That seems like the more important piece of the puzzle, but does that, or I don't know, that's kind of how I sense this. Does that resonate?
Yes and no. I think the other aspect of this is that we also have aspects if something rises to the level that needs to be done outside the budget process, right? So there's never a time when, if in March, an idea says, hey, we know we want to vote on this, we'd like to have number, staff can start working on a number for whatever it may be, whatever that may be. So that whether it be at that time or other discussion time that we have with the commission as to how to expend tax dollars, because we have unassigned funds, right? So kind of the savings account, there's an extra amount of money that's potentially to be spent based on commission standards and commission things that have been defined by ordinance. That it's always nice to have those numbers of priorities that you have. So at any point you can have that. So do I say that it's pigeonholed by it always being in June? No, it can be done at any time. Those numbers are nice to have at any time, but it's formalizing it within that document because I think by municipal habit, it's to look to that document for what did you say when we went to Capitol? Well, a lot of things can change between, I don't remember what happened in May of 2022 as opposed to May of 2023. It's a whole different ballgame, but, yes, I guess I do want to say, Commissioner Flynn, that where I would say no is I did not mean to imply that the board needs to do it. I mean, ultimately it's delivering their priority, like, hey, we need to get and whether that be rising to the level of need to get a plan together, well, that first needs to be budgeted before we can get numbers for a construction plan, and that's where CIP, we can get numbers for a plan, that's first part of it, and then to your point, Tom, you have multi-year. Well, we can't have the full budget number and full flushed out plan until flushed out everything we're gonna do with full cost. We can put a ballpark number on it, but we first need to have the plan, have the survey done and all those different things. So sometimes there's the cart before the horse that we need to make sure is also included as part of these, so.
Yeah, no, and I don't think you implied that the board has to do the price out, but I've run into that statement many times, and yeah, some board members, not here per se, but yeah, I've run into this board where they go, how do I do that? And I'm like, yeah, that's not your job. Yeah, your job is to frame the priorities of the of the board, and articulate those, and to an extent where staff can pick it up and place it in a list. This is actually one area where I think the finance board will be interesting, right? Is helping understand kind of the multi-year projects and having those kind of discussions and helping other boards understand kind of how this whole thing plays out. Not that I want to take away your pension board. But I think this is one of those areas where boards have struggled. So I'm interested in everybody's ideas on how to make this a better process.
I think my biggest takeaway is don't pigeonhole it to always being in June. If you guys have an idea that needs to be starting to be facilitated, that we need to throw a number to how much it would take to plan to, let's say the community gardens is a good one, right? If we wanted to plan it, do we have to have our what do you call it, say again? No, our kind of architect, it's not a landscape architect. If you've got to have like a design plan, well, let's throw a number to that and get an estimate on it. That's where staff can help. We can say, okay, we're gonna get it. And then based on that plan, we can say, okay, ballpark out of this, give us a range. Here's, if you're saying these ranges, let's say it's gonna be 400 grand. Then that's what goes in the CIP in June. But you could have done that in February. It doesn't have to be all buttoned up and pigeonholed into June. And that's hard when you're in February to be thinking about, that far out. But if it's a priority, let's start getting how much would a conceptual landscape architect plan cost, and maybe it's 1,500 or maybe it's 10,000. I don't know. We get that number together, and that can go part and parcel to the CIP and so on and so forth to get those ballpark numbers for when you do rank it. We now have kind of there's going to be a first piece that staff doesn't have the knowledge to do it. The engineer necessarily doesn't have the, on staff engineer, or appointed engineer doesn't have, we're gonna have to go hire somebody to do that. So there's gonna be a process. So it kind of gets that all out in front before June.
Yeah, I think the important thing from our perspective is we need to know what we're trying to get a price on.
Yeah.
Is it a Cadillac, is it a Volkswagen, so we need to know what to get a price on. We typically get all the pricing for that, for the budgets.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Moving on. All right, thank you.
Guys have a good evening.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate you coming in. Approval of May minutes. I reviewed them. Motion to approve.
Second.
So moved.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Public Works update, grounds, facilities, trees, etc. Bill and Rudy.
We got the second tree order for Williamsburg in. We're starting to little bit of watering efforts now, obviously. Got some tree bags that are coming, got some more coming, got 3 trees that were kind of the remainder of our street tree order, plumped into Iroquois, got some good comments from residents about them. We'll get them watered as well and just kind of keeping up on the parks and getting ready for the next big summer rush after Memorial Day through there.
Cool. Did the grass grow?
And it's a little skimpy and all the, I mean, it's the water, so we're gonna see what happens. If we have to, we'll reseed in the fall, you know, we have good growing weather. And like Phil said, we're focusing our watering efforts on the trees we planted in the spring, because the fall stuff had rooted in and it's pretty decent. So we've had a couple waterings so far, but with our staff also did a nice job. They repaired the head wall down in Williamsburg Park near the bridge, between the bridge and the wall. There was water running, the natural stream there was plugged up. There was existing drainage, but they really did a real nice job of putting a stone wall, head wall in there, precast stone wall. And we're gonna see that area here this week. It'll be done and wrapped up, but they did a real nice job. So it was a chronic problem that would crop up every once in a while. And once it got wet, it was real hard to get machinery in there. So the dry weather was a bonus. We were able to get in there and do.
Keep staying dry this summer, there may be some places you can work, but you normally
Yeah,
can't.
we're trying to focus on those areas exactly. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
One comment, Meadowcroft Park, the maple trees adjacent to the pickleball courts. 3 of them still have the guide lines attached, but the stakes are out of the ground. Probably.
Yeah.
Probably good at this point,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, they should be. Those were pretty big
Nice trees.
balls on them too, yeah.
Okay, any other comments? For maintenance? Great. Commissioner Flynn, update for commission. From
Actually, commission's been quiet. We're all enjoying a 3 weeks between meetings. So it's quite in as much as it can be. So not a whole lot to report.
Awesome, we are making up time. Great. Old business. Communications and signage. Bennett, do you have anything to report?
Not too much new. At the last meeting, Andrew shared that proposal from Colano. It's for $11,000 for the kind of primary signs, the fields and park sign. This is just for the designs, right? The design and style guide manual. And then it goes up to an additional 23,000 to include other types of signs. And it's so I think that's just dependent on commission approval at this point. That's kind of the next thing that can happen.
Thank you. Forestry and invasives, I'll take this. We had a meeting on the 30th with Tim Nuttall, Tom, Rudy, Bill, Superintendent Dan Kirk, Ron Block, John Farrell, all met with Tim Nuttall at the Public Works Yard. They've done a round of invasives mapping, returned for a visit to check on new emergence. The next step is forestry plots, which is a more detailed inventory on small areas. Quick summary, Bird has a lot of honeysuckle. Woodridge Trail System is confusing, lots of encroachment. Twin Hills, this was a striking comment. Twin Hills would be completely lost in 10 years without action. Cited 2 specific problems. As the black locusts die, there will be nothing to replace them. Norway maple, dense shade, and allelopathy suppressing other plants. That was the harsh comment of the meeting. Rob Hollow, positive, more diverse mix of trees will survive longer as it is. We discussed strategies at a high level, iterative gradual approach versus aggressive work in a single area. We commented on deer exclosures and Churchill Valley Greenway project, which is a project of the Allegheny Land Trust. I looked it up today. They've got quite a lot on the web. It would be interesting to review that as maybe a best practice or just an example of what these plans can turn into. He commented on particular plants and this idea of a successional strategy, planting things like tulip poplar and sycamore, which grow fast. But then you replace them eventually with other species. Rudy had a great question regarding the reduction of scope from the RFP to meet the budget. What did that change? It was a reduction in scope from 16 to 5 parks, less in-depth forestry study. And what would that do to the product that we receive? We'll get a master plan, which has a number of projects and a resource allocation versus a more prescriptive, like number of acres with one methodology or another, with a number of stems planted per species per acre, which is a very, very detailed reforestation plan. So that's a great question. Rudy, we talked about work that had occurred in the parks over recent years. Tom and I both followed up with documents to him to give him more info. So it was a great meeting,
I'd like to go. When was that?
last Tuesday. Any other comments?
We covered it well.
Park design guidelines and trail restoration, our members are absent, pass on that. Main Park Master Plan, you probably haven't heard anything from.
No, we had a meeting about the RFQ.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Oh,
for
great.
proposal. And marked it up and should have gone up.
It went out, we had a pre-construction meeting on site at Main Park. About 8 firms showed up, 6 provided RFPs. So Richard, that small group, Richard, and I forget the others in it, we have a little online bank of 6 RFPs to review by this Friday to give back to Ian with a score sheet. So we'll have more info at the next meeting.
So that was a pre-construction. Is there
Or
already
pre-bid meeting.
to do a design? Or,
No,
Review.
to review the RFP that went out.
Oh,
It
so
was
we
an
already-
aggressive RFP. It went out. It said there's a pre-bid meeting on site at this date. Your proposals are due the week after.
so we already have a design of what
They've already submitted 6 proposals.
6 pros, yeah, have been received. So
For a planning process.
planning process.
It's a main park master planning process.
Not what it's.
No.
I'm sorry, I heard.
yeah, no
construction.
tangible anything. Just 6 replied back. Those are being reviewed.
Great. Rafferton Restoration, I haven't heard anything. No one yet isn't here. Invasives in the municipal code, Tom. You haven't heard anything.
No, you had sent, on the 10th, I believe, Ian, the board's recommendations. I have not heard back and got busy, and I'm happy to, you know, I mean, if that would be.
Yeah, maybe send them a reminder. No. Great. Comprehensive plan, nothing new from me. New business. Community tree donation process. I've had a couple of inquiries via Friends of Pinecone Park about residents that want to donate trees. We talked about this in reference to something from Main Park last year, maybe. And I just wondered, do we have a formal process? Is it published anywhere?
Not really a formal process.
So we can maybe tackle this in a subsequent meeting as like, what do we need to do here to remedy that?
Are we talking about people that want to donate a tree or pay for a donated tree or?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I kind of see it analogous to our scout projects list, rather than have people dream stuff up. If we had a list of stuff we needed.
To control it a little better, yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to fund this tree that
Yeah.
we need to plant, here's your way to do it.
Yeah.
Something
Okay.
like that.
All right.
Street tree trimming plot prior to planned road construction. I showed Rudy a couple of photos of damage to trees on Flint Ridge. We'll follow up with the contractor. I just wonder if there's a process.
There is, and that shouldn't happen. That's addressed in our pre-construction meetings with all of our contractors, so that should not have happened.
Any other new business that we would talk about in the subsequent meeting? Great. All right. So back to, budget. Well, I'll just generalize and say, what are our priorities that require money? So I put out this list of 7 items and with the idea that we would rank them and then sort out after the fact, based on the costs, what would become in the financial situation, what becomes a capital, what becomes an operating. And before we rank, we could, go around and let everybody comment on items. Peter is absent. He provided his ranking and his overriding comment was, given that we are the Parks Board and we have role for street trees prior to the merging of the boards with sports, our priorities should reflect the more nature-centric aspects of our work. Do you have any comments on any of the items or
Yeah.
questions?
Well, yeah, I was wondering, because I meant to go back and look at the Parks Master Plan, which I didn't look at except for Bird Park. Relative to a couple of items, but could we just maybe recap what our understanding of each of them is? Will that take too long?
No. Establish clear park boundaries adjacent to private property. This is probably amounts to surveying or reviewing existing maps and survey markers to mark the boundaries and notify residents that may be affected. That they're
And post, like for painting things like that.
So the areas of concern were Bird Park from Washington Road, working your way westward down Youngwood, continuing down Mayfair to at least the circle turnaround area. Hoodridge, behind, I think it's called Ridgeway and Marshall Drive. Iroquois to the right of the turnaround cul-de-sac. And there was the other one, Rob Hollow. Certain portion of Rob Hollow from. Actually,
I don't know about Rock Hollow. We're actually, I think, using
yeah.
properties on Furwood for walking paths and so forth. We're cutting across private property.
Yeah, so the issue there is the liability to the resident if something were to happen. It's like, what if a tree were to fall there? It's on private property, but it's a trail that's.
I think that was the point. There's things you can do to indemnify the homeowner to say, if it, it's being used as part of the trail, then, you're indemnified against that. So yeah, it goes both ways. There's things one should do on that side.
I think if we got a, scope and price, which isn't gonna happen, immediately for surveying, we could prioritize. I know there's one little area, if you look closely at the Rob Hollow map where the trail cuts across it, probably size of this room at most, somebody's private
On
property.
Furwood, yeah, the cul-de-sac.
I think we went through, there's probably 5 parks that need to be surveyed, and once you start to do it, you might as well do the whole thing, so. I think it was, I don't remember the 5 off my head, but there was 5 parks, we said, if we're gonna do it, we just should do all 5. And
There's some in the main park too.
Yeah, there's main-
Back part of the main park off
I think it was-
Bridge, right? I talked to our engineer about that. We had a capital meeting this afternoon, Teams meeting. And he said that there is some quantity of scales reduction in price with surveying. So the more you do, I didn't realize that. I thought that, you know, it was pretty standard, but if you're gonna survey multiple properties. Right.
Yes, they're just banging it out.
But I think, you know, based on our previous comments here, I think if the Parks Advisory Board would identify those areas that they would like to have surveyed, then we would be able to come up with a cost for that and serve that value.
Really shouldn't be too expensive, I wouldn't think.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not, you know, there's some research that probably has to be done, recorder of deeds and so forth on some properties, and, you know, we may have some surveys in hand from property owners that did work, and we save all those. We scan them into our system, into our Laserfish system, so we have access to those to scale for some of them. You know, if they've done work and they've submitted information to the inspection department, we may have.
You would think almost the more expensive piece would be putting up signage or markers.
Well, that's the thing too. We would have to identify, you know, what type of
Markers.
monument or
Yeah.
marker we want to use that would be semi-permanent that we could rely on. Doesn't get knocked down or stolen or moved. I mean, you can pin them, you know, you can pin the corners of the properties, and that's what's typically done, but I think you need something a little more visual.
I agree. Yeah, and we did go through the process of identifying and giving you.
And maybe we create a, you know, a path along that property boundary, and you create a walking path so that you have a clearing that would be established on the municipal side of the property. That could be your boundary then.
Good on that one, Tom?
Yeah, sorry.
Ben or Andrew, any questions on the first item? What it is or why to do it?
Nope.
Number two, implement invasive species management for woodlands. So this is the idea that Tim Nuttall's study will give us a guide of what to tackle first in terms of projects, or maybe a sampling of projects we can choose from to tackle first. We'll need money to do that. So this is sort of an endorsement to get some funds allocated to do something with that.
Based on our meeting last week, it's probably less, as you say, Rob.
Operating more than capital.
Number three, develop forest management plan, tree trees. This is basically analogous to our invasives in the woodlands. Do we need a similar prescription to enhance the program we already have? So we have a street tree program with trimming, planting, removal, prioritization, a system at work. We've got a species selection and a tree guide. Do we need?
It's basically recommending that Rudy's budget for forestry be increased.
Expand.
Yeah, I mean, it really is what it is. We've got our budgets, yeah, just that
Have a
we,
professional third party come in and look at what we're doing and what could be done.
yeah, because, you know, the street trees is the one thing that in the code is actually, you know, what we're supposed to focus on. And so it's just to say, you know, we agree with the commissioners that there's probably not enough being spent on the trees as the fleet ages, and that the budget should be increased for tree management, just because our trees are getting older, and as they get older, they take more maintenance. You can't just, you know, do an inflation adjusted budget as the trees get bigger and older.
It's less probably about the mechanics of it and more about the scope.
Define
And the funding.
the expectations of what the program should be.
Yeah, and looking out decades to give you the support.
You can look across the community, we could trim trees for years, there's so much pent up.
That's never ending. I mean,
Yeah, it's just, there's a lot of trees.
And with the environmental changes, I mean, you look at some of the trees and some of the things that are happening with the Norway maples and some of the sycamore and things like that. You know, that was not even predicted several years ago. So it's an impact that you have to deal with now that you really didn't anticipate a couple of years ago.
We're getting increase Rudy's
Not a
tree.
problem. It's, I
Yeah,
mean,
so.
certain different conditions, you'll get, yeah. no, Anthrax, no, the sycamore are not being wiped out. They are not.
And being a little bit wonkier, economist, you know, well, there's lots of economist studies and things that a well-maintained street set of street trees adds value to the property and more than pays for increase, if your property tax, your property tax base challenge here is, like we said, it all goes to the school district. So the city has to spend the money to improve the trees, but then it benefits, the taxes all go to the school district.
There's environmental benefits too, from cooling and,
Right.
you know, those type of things. It's less air conditioning use because of the shade of the trees.
So,
It really boils down to how do you convince people that the trees are valuable and they should pay for them?
right, the value definition and publication of that would be part of it, is like, how do you assess it? How do you track it? And then how do you show people this is what this tax outlay is getting in return? Value back to them.
Exactly.
Okay. Meadowcroft Park Phase 3. This is basketball courts and lighting.
Basketball court, lighting and paving, yes, and new basketball hoops and fencing on that side. It's the third phase of a three-phase program.
Are there any accessibility attributes left?
Just one in the center that, there's part of it's a sidewalk that goes through the two courts between the tennis courts, which are gonna be pickleball courts and the basketball courts. So there's an accessibility issue there. The accessibility from North Meadowcroft to the actual courts themselves, but the court is in pretty poor condition too. The surface is pretty worn and tattered. It needs resurfaced. The lighting is not, we won't replace all the poles, just the heads, and update those with LED, but they're in pretty poor condition. A lot of the bulk of the heavy work, I'll call it, with the exception of the court surface on the basketball court's already been accomplished. So the tennis courts will repave, the ADA access into the court areas. It's, with the switchbacks. Yeah, they're good. The lighting is all new on the tennis courts. It's all LED, so it's updated. The electrical, the fencing on that side, the electrical component, the electrical panel that services the entire facility has been updated. So the last part of that, the last piece of that is the basketball courts, and they get quite a bit of use over there. I'm surprised how much they're used.
Yeah, I'll testify to that, that it's a heavily used park. I've heard from people in the neighborhood who would like to see the basketball court finished. Everything looks great that's been done, and the basketball court is the, obvious exception to that.
Other questions, comments on that? Okay. Community gardens improvements, fence and path. Peter is not here, but there was talk last year about how everyone has to put up independent fencing. The trail to the site, I guess, we improved that somewhat.
We did, yeah, we did a couple things. Number one, we pushed it out so that the slope wasn't as steep. Resurfaced it with milled asphalt, which compacted. And we also installed a swale at the head of that to tow the slope to direct the water over into the open field so that the water running off the parking lot, and we have some dumpsters and so forth up there, wouldn't run into the garden plots, and it would be diverted over into the open grass area.
So I think the open item here is the fence, making a deer-proof fence so individual users wouldn't need protection. And we've talked about that fair amount.
You may want to mention too, Rob, about, or the question I had for Tim, Nuttall, about the Queen Anne's Lace, the hemlock, that's growing around there, yeah, where you can just cut the stem, the meristem.
Yeah.
And they should take care of it with a shovel, basically just chop it, which I wasn't aware of.
Right, it doesn't, it spreads via seed, so if you get it.
It's biennial.
Oh,
So,
it's a biennial.
yeah, it's biennial, and yeah, it's propagated by seed from the flower heads
So if you cut the plant,
at the stem, at the basal stem. Below that, to take care of it. It's not as poisonous as people think it is, as far as its phytotoxicity.
so let's all get out in the woods and how do we do that?
That's-
Is it up there now?
It's up there now. yeah.
Okay. That way we can expand it. Bleacher replacements, Middle Seymour Dixon. Bill, you told us about this somewhat.
Yeah, we recently found a company that actually will retrofit your sides and back panels to bring them into compliance, so. Some of the bleachers, we're looking at them and yeah, they're old, but they're aluminum, there's nothing wrong with them. Other than the fall suppression. So this company actually will take measurements, they get the tag off your bleachers and will send you kits to install versus junking. You know, essentially good bleachers that just are, you know, not caught up with the times, so that item is being reworked. I don't have numbers back from them yet. So rather than large wholesale, you know, seeing us throw away perfectly good bleachers, we're gonna look at the possibility of going this route with the ones that make sense, so.
Cause I sat on the ones at Dixon Sunday and
You're
under
still
the
here.
tree and
Still here.
they're perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
They are perfect.
It would be.
Yeah, so, but yeah, at first, it didn't look like anyone would offer that, throwing their name on retrofitting another company's bleachers, but these folks are, up for it.
Have we had any incidents?
Not that I know of, but you will, if you start really paying attention to it, you will see that a lot of fields, anything over 3 has that fall suppression on it as well as toes.
It was called out by our insurance agent, so.
Questions on bleachers? Bird beadling parking lot with green provisions.
Well, that was in this past year's or 2022 through 2027 capital budget, I think. And I'd wondered about it at the last Parks Advisory Board meeting, just wondering whether the design therefore included green stormwater management or not.
I'm sorry, on the parking lot?
Yeah.
We talked about pervious pavement
Yeah.
for that, so.
I think, you know, I'd sent some information, I think until that Project 70 land issue is resolved and researched. Yeah, I would think anything in that area of bird parks needs to be tabled for now. Because I did, you know, I forwarded some information to everybody that I found, I've got some more information. Legally, if it is Project 70 land, the city doesn't own it. It's actually owned jointly by all the citizens of Pennsylvania with the city as a trustee. So the city doesn't even have any rights around zoning variances or anything. So you know, there's some it's actually like a traditional commons area legally, like an English commons. So there may be some pretty strict land use rules around it. So, yeah, I just think the city attorney or somebody needs to go back and research.
I thought that our solicitor, Phil Weiss, responded to your email.
I didn't see anything.
I don't think that was a concern that he had as far as the state park thing that you had mentioned in your email. I'll have to look back. I talked to the manager about it.
You can't put any kind of paved or surfaces on it. There's some pretty strict rules about Project 70 land and so I've been trying to ask some more people, try to find what the exact rules are, but you know, also there's concern about setbacks. I saw some things that referred to setbacks of 100 feet from Project 70 land for anything, you know, so.
I know that Phil had responded, so let me look back in my emails and
Okay.
I'll make sure that you were copied on that, so.
Yeah, at least from what I could find, you know, and that explained why any exceptions had to go all the way to the legislature. Because the only body that can approve an exception, because it's owned jointly by all Pennsylvania citizens on behalf of the citizens, is the legislature. So if you want any exceptions from the land use rules, the DADCNR, it's not state-owned land, it's joint-owned land. So it has to go all the way to a resolution approved by the legislature, which basically is impossible to get. They won't give it. You know, the only thing they've ever done is you know, agreed to land swap deals. Okay, if you want to use this land for a non-Project 70 approved use, then tack on some other acres and then we'll approve it.
That's one thing we don't have a lot of it.
Well, because what you don't want is to go build something and then it sounds like if somebody protests, you have to rip it out. You know, there's no recourse. The court will say remove it. So you just don't want to get stuck in that kind of a situation. Because there's no short of the legislature doing an act to approve what you install. There's no recourse to get approval for it. It just has
Was
to.
that parking area within the Project 70
Yeah.
purchase plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. And so is some of this parking spaces along Youngway are crossing onto Project 70 land. So, the risk is if it really is there and somebody decides to take action, they can just go to a judge and. City really doesn't have any influence over it.
Well,
It's.
the area now is not, I don't know if it's considered paved because it's milled asphalt, it's just been compacted in there,
Correct,
so.
correct. That may be why it is the way it is.
Yeah.
Because way back when Bird Park was developed, people knew that. So there was one, I think, an old timer from the Nature Conservancy that knew that it had to be gravel, but didn't remember why. But that there was some regulation, and then same thing on those spaces on Youngwood, if they're, impinging onto that Project 70 land.
Yeah, because they're, Youngwood's actually within the parcels of the Youngwood property, so the road itself is, the parcel actually, yeah,
But some of the parking spaces. if you
beyond
cross
the
on
other
it,
side, yeah.
So all someone has to do, any citizen from Pennsylvania can go to a judge and get an order to cease and desist. The city doesn't have to be involved. So any citizen of Pennsylvania is standing on the property. And if there's a setback violation or anything, they can simply go to a judge, say, I'm a citizen of Pennsylvania, I have standing. I'm a joint owner of this property. My setback's been violated, please order the violation to be ceased. And there's no, if I understand it, the city has no the city is a trustee, but once there's a violation, then that trusteeship is, the person has the right to go straight to a court. So it sounds like it could get pretty ugly in a hurry if somebody wanted to make it difficult.
So the setback. That's post. Establishment of the land as Project 70. right?
Yeah, I think
Like if anything was there
things may
before.
be grandfathered, but like the new construction going in that church. One thing I saw was a very specific 100-foot setback from any marked trail in order to keep it visually unimpaired. Even if that, even if that 100 feet goes into private property, so once there's a trail on Project 70 land, if you can't put any structure within 100 feet of it, even if that 100 feet extends into a private property, they can't put a structure within 100 feet of a trail on a Project 70 land because it impacts the visual, whatever the visual, that's visual impact upon someone walking on the trail when the trail is a commonly owned property. So private property owner doesn't have the right to mess up the view for the general public. So like that property, if you look at where the trail goes along that property, that church property, there may be 100-foot setback from that trail. Because it's a marked trail on the map. So I don't, I don't know what the construction plans are, like, so you can't just look at where the property line is in the setback. There's also a setback from the trail. Maybe, I don't know if I'm reading the rules right. So either way, so that's just something that we need to make sure before we do anything that it's well understood. And if the solicitors looked at it, that'd be great.
And to that end, Rudy, I sent that Phil's email to you.
Okay, I was trying to find it, okay.
Yeah, it's a long email. I'll just put it that way. Probably better if you send it to the group rather than trying to summarize it, because
Okay, yeah, it's because I'm not a lawyer.
nor am I.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you, Andrew.
Does anyone have any other comments or questions relative to that item or the other 6 items? Nope.
Thank you, that was useful.
Can we go ahead and can do it on your paper there, and then I can write it on the board and probably that. Ben, you want to email me?
Or if that's what you said.
Drop it off, I'll grab it.
So just let me restate we're noting 1 through 7, 1 being the highest priority, 7 being the least priority.
Sure.
Looks like call, the low score wins.
Yeah, the low score wins. You do that?
Yeah, this was, it's my one is my first priority.
Got it.
Group, like it's where you can send a group email. You don't change the group.
It comes up as an email.
Okay.
The other party, who it does. I don't know.
Have to have it as a group thing, yeah, I mean. Okay.
And Rob, I did just send you an email.
Thank you.
I created final groups. I already have it, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Is it the one you've been getting stuff from me?
Yeah,
It's just delineated.
yeah, it's a,
She took out.
Okay.
And then you just, she has a 1, 2, 3, and 4. And she has,
What, you know, that's not sure.
2, 3, 4, 6, 7. So she would just give 6s at the other. That would work out.
2 6s to the
Yeah.
other 3.
So what you got? 1 is invasive species for Kelly. 2 is Meadowcroft. 3 is B or bird parking lot. 4 is forest management plan for street trees. And then the 6 is on the other ones.
Got it, Ben. Thank you.
So first one is Title 5. Good head, right? So 6, 8, 14, 25, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 13, 17, 20, 3, 6, 7, 9, 19, 11, 8, 28. 8, 15, 21, 32. 36. Overall. So invasive species is 1. Basically, Meadowcroft and forest management are a tie. Meadowcroft's 2. Mini gardens is 4. I'm sorry, park boundaries is 1. 5, 6, and 7. And in the invasive species, would that just be like, right now, we have what, a $7,000 budget a year?
5,
Five.
the week, the second level was 5, I think it was an additional
Budget
5.
numbers, it would just be, should we be requesting a fixed amount? Because we were saying the whole point is to do a multi-year plan based on Tim's work. So
I think it's gonna depend on what, you know,
$40,000, or what should we be?
well, I think it's gonna depend on what Tim comes back with, you know, because we've told him what we're doing. And he seems to be pretty, you know, he thinks that's sufficient. But, you know, do we need to implement other best management practices or something too? Versus, you know, because he talked about some mowing and some things like that. Getting like a brush hogger, the land clearing machine that we used over, or the contractor used over in Twin Hills. Potentially acquiring one of those for public works to use in different areas of the parks too, so.
You need to go start.
I don't know, I mean-
To do mulching.
I'm sorry, yeah,
That actually makes it worse, but that's my personal view. of what I've seen.
I don't know yet, Richard, you know, I mean, that's why we got.
Oh, yeah, just back there, so we should just leave it blank, not say we'd like a $40,000 year budget or something.
I mean, we may have
So
that
the
before,
invasive species management per expert's recommendation.
yeah, I think his plan, Rob, he was planning on coming to the Parks Advisory Board in August, right?
Yes, that was the other things. We're gonna put them on the agenda for.
Yeah, so he can let us know where he's at and give us some feedback and go from there, so that may, you know, because it's probably gonna be an operating budget item.
So the same thing for the street trees, you know, and just not a specific number, but just saying. Whoever did the budget, we think it needs to be basically increased.
An item, right?
So that. So do you sometimes have like a?
I thought that was to bring an expert in and actually evaluate our programs,
We can do that.
similar to what we did with the parks. That was
Okay.
That was my- not just more money for,
Yeah, no, right.
So that's the.
Yeah,
to
that's
do a
pretty-
study and evaluation of our existing programs
Yeah.
and make recommendations based on.
Yeah, because there's a lot of good stuff happening. It's just. There's probably some more systemic way to look at it and. They can give the commission a better sense of what it's truly gonna cost.
Like I said, the commission has asked, what does it cost to maintain a fleet of trees properly, and how should we? You know, is there, you know, pay me now or pay me later, if you don't do proper maintenance now, then you have trees crashing down and it gets more expensive as you're doing emergency work, and, okay, that makes sense, okay.
You wouldn't show that picture to. I don't know if you can display the picture, you know.
Yeah, I'm not even on as a.
Oh, participant. Don't worry about it. I can. So Ben and, Andrew, the worked out as invasive species 1, Meadowcroft 2, forest management plan for street trees 3, park boundaries 4, community gardens 5, bleachers 6, and bird parking lot 7.
Makes sense.
Sounds good.
We'll document that. So Ethan. Yeah, that was
Oh, you're on time.
surprising after lower start, but anyone have any final questions or comments about that process?
Do you need, get bureaucratic, do we need a resolution or something? Pass that forward to the municipality.
Sure, do you want to?
I move the ranking of recommended projects as shown on the whiteboard. Be recommended to the municipality.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, so moved. Commission meeting message, for May, I don't think we attended the commission meetings in May. As a advisory board or individual. Does anyone have well, actually, Commissioner Flynn, is there a June commission meeting or commission meetings?
There is, it's in 2 weeks.
Does anyone have a thought as to, anything we would want to promote or bring up?
You talk about the vote you just took. Right, the vote you just took. Right, these are issues that are important, and you've gone through this process of vetting these items and. You want to just talk about why the top one is important, or maybe the top 2, I don't know. That would be my suggestion.
Good idea. All right. Does anyone maybe everyone needs to look at their schedule, but,
The 19th or the 20th, or is that the,
I think it's before that,
Hang on, I'm looking at my calendar.
in a month, it would be, what's, a week from today,
okay, so that'd be the 13th.
yes.
does anyone have a hankering to?
I might be able to go, I may be out of town. Not sure on that day.
I can go, and then Richard. You can lead the charge, I should be available.
How about I send an email on Thursday this week, just and see who might want to
Okay,
attend.
yeah, with the, if you could put the list, type it up and send it.
That way people have a better idea of their schedules. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to go, that's for sure, I'm moving a son from Chicago, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna be unpacked and moved back here on Tuesday night.
Great. Any final comments, questions, topics before we adjourn? All right, motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
All right. Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Night.
Half hour early. Thanks, Ben.
Good job, Rob.